name is Taylor. I go by the stage name of the Bear Dude every once in a while. So I'm from Clifton, New Jersey. So I was born and raised in New Jersey. I moved out to Rhode Island for a little bit. I've lived in Pennsylvania for a little bit. Originally, I wanted to be a college coach. That was kind of the career path that I had chosen, but somehow it ended up being me kind of wanting to do comedy. I'm a huge fan of like music, so one of the things that I do is musical comedy, and that's kind of been my shtick, and that's kind of been how I've been taking my comedy path, and hopefully I kind of continue to take it and build on those skills, and that's kind of what I do.
It's crazy because like Jersey in general has a lot of musicians and comedians. A lot of like the famous ones. I mean, do you think it was like an influence from Jersey, or you think it was just your self journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was always kind of in theater as a kid, and I had a lot of people that would, or I was doing a lot of shows. I was doing a ton of shows, but I never really fit in with theater kids. I don't think. I think it's a different type of person that I think attracts theater, and I never really liked theater, but I loved the idea of like music, and I loved the idea of performing. So it was difficult for me to kind of find like a niche and a path. But I started playing the guitar in college. And I kind of fell in love with the guitar. I played fingerstyle music for a little bit, like Tommy Emmanuel type music. And, kind of after that, I think just kind of like watching YouTube videos of kind of like funny comedy songs, I think really kind of got me into it. I know like, I think the first comedy song that I saw was DJ LaBelle's Wrong Hole. It got, I think like 10 million views on YouTube. So I also, Stephen Lynch, he was a big influence. The second song that I learned on the guitar was one of Stephen Lynch's songs. So I don't think anything was Jersey centric. I think a lot of it was just kind of finding things online and just kind of talking to people that were older than me, I guess, and that had just been like, yo, check out this video. And then, I kind of saw it and I kind of liked it. And I love the idea of like taking something that's music and just kind of like turning it into humor and just kind of connecting people with that. I think it's just so fascinating.
So you said you learned guitar around college time, you said, or did you already kind of start practicing in like the end of high school?
So I when I got to college, I was a physical education major. One of the classes that we had taken as an elective was music appreciation, and I did not want to take the course. So I found a loophole. I could take guitar lessons. So that's actually how I kind of got into it. So I started, I think it was sophomore year of college. And it ended up being something that I really liked, and it's interesting because I was an athlete in college and I had that, but I always knew like athletics has to end at some point, so like I needed something to kind of like delve myself into that was going to allow me to grow as a person while simultaneously giving me entertainment that's healthy in a sense. But and then I ended up loving that guitar, and it just kind of stuck with me, and I've been playing it for, I guess, like, I don't know how old I am at this point. 8 years, 9 years now. So, and I've gotten better. I think the kind of technology that we have these days, you can learn at a very fast pace if it's something that you want to get into. But I was singing a lot as a kid. Like I had taken voice lessons as a kid. So kind of combining the two, I think it happened from childhood, but ultimately the guitar was something that I had picked up at a much later age than most.
It's kind of ironic how you skipped music appreciation to learn the guitar, and then you started appreciating music.
Yeah. That's how they get you. They try to trick you.
So during college, that transition into comedy, like, did you do open mics in college as well, or?
No. So I was playing guitar in college, and like I said, I was always kind of into the music. The first thing that I ever did. My buddy, one of his like sorority sister friends, they were running this event. It was like the Monmouth Idol talent show, and there was this cover that like I was obsessed with, and it was the song, I don't know what it's called. It's like 369, damn you're fine, suck it to me, from the window to the wall. There's a guy, I think his name is Dan Henning. He does this like cover album of it. And it's like 369, damn you're fine. So I performed that, and it was in front of like 2,000 people or whatever, and it was a huge venue, and it was a lot of fun. So I did that, and then the next year I did that DJ LaBelle's Wrong Hole song. Again, same thing, huge venue, and then I think I didn't really touch comedy music. I wrote my first song. I think it was in 2017. We had this really, really strange argument of like, is it like strap-ons, right? Is it weird or is it gay? Like to take it with a strap-on, and that was like something that we debated in the dining hall more often than I'd like to admit. And I mean, I always thought it was weird, but I ended up writing a song about it because I was like mid-argument with this girl through texts. Because like I said, it probably consumed about 100 hours of my life, like arguing, is it weird or is it gay to take it with a strap on? And then I wrote the song. It was terrible. It wasn't a good song. I mean, I love it. It has a special place in my heart. And then I just never, I like mixed it like on my iPhone, and then like I didn't really do anything with it. And then it was 2019. I had just finished grad school, and I was kind of in a down place. I didn't really have a job at the time. I really didn't know where my life was going, and I needed something, I think, to kind of feel productive. So I started writing songs, and I wrote like one or two, and they were okay. But then I took one. It was, I think, November of 2019. I took it to a mic, and the structure wasn't there. Like nothing was great, but there was this one guy in the front. His name was Russell Austin. He's also a comedian, and he was just laughing his ass off at like every single line. And I was like, oh, like this is kind of cool. So once every other week, I would go and I would write a new song and I would try it, and then I would write a new song and then I would try it. And not all of them hit, but I think ultimately as a comedian, that's kind of what happens. It's different in songwriting because if you do a joke, you can bail on the joke. If you do a song, you're stuck for 4 minutes. So, and there's like comedians that like, they do like the short songs, like they're guitar comics. I always say like, I'm a musical comic, not a guitar comic. But those people that do the short songs, it's easy to bail. For me, it's like I do full songs. So, yeah, but that's kind of how I started. And then I think once COVID hit, then I was like, okay, like this is kind of more, like this is something that I want to do. So I was just writing and writing and writing. And then I got into regular traditional stand-up as well to kind of complement what I've already been doing. And it's just kind of been a journey from there. So.
How many songs have you written so far?
That's a good question. I probably good ones or like
let's say first we'll talk about the total of the songs you've written.
Probably about like 30, 35. So, which doesn't sound like that much, but like they're pretty intricate. Like I take way too much time to like think about these things. Like, I mean, I could spend a month on a song just trying to work out the wording of like I wrote this one song, and it was like, how big should I think my penis is, And like, was it funnier if it was 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches, or 9 inches? So I had to go to 6 different open mics to figure that out, So like that took a whole week. So yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of thought process that goes into it, I think, which is why I only have 35, but I also have 35. I think that's a lot. And like I said, some of them I write once, I get to the mic and I'm like, this is terrible. Like people don't like it. And I'm just like, okay, like let's move on to the next,
So is that how you like differentiate the good ones with the bad ones? Let's say, you just said, like you went to 6 or 7 different open mics, and then you had to determine which one was the funniest one.
Yeah.
So is that usually the experimental process that you go through?
So usually what happens is I'll write a song, and my goal is I go to the open mic. The first thing I do, because my songs are pretty structured, so basically like the premise comes after the first like minute or so, or the 30 seconds to a minute. If the premise doesn't hit, I throw it out the window. I go to the next one. Once I if I go to an open mic and the premise hits, then it's like, okay, now I can start working on that song. So then each individual stanza should have a joke. People should be laughing every 10 to 15 seconds. And then basically it's just kind of like regular stand-up. Like if you don't get those laughs every 10 to 15 seconds, you've got to kind of switch things up, and eventually you get somebody to laugh at every joke, and then the song is complete. That's kind of how it works. So
I have a hint of resentment towards you. Okay, so I actually, when I interviewed Dwayne, he told me that he was a theater major.
Oh, really? Okay.
And, like he told me that he was also athletic, and then like he also did performances. And like inside my mind, I was like, I was the fucking loser in the corner, getting fucking bullied all the time. I fucking hated guys like you. But I gotta ask, like, with the physical education,
yeah,
how did that transition as well? Like, like when did you end up ending grad school with the physical education, or
So it's interesting. So I will say a lot more athletes are musical than you'd think. So I was a professional fighter for a little bit, and I used to fight at this place in Fairfield. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but basically what they did is they flew guys down from Russia, and they would train them, and then they would fight. Yeah, it was a crazy place, crazy thing to be a part of. But we all had a band. We would all get together and we would just make music. And it was just like every single fighter that came in, it was like they had kind of that desire to do music, just even if it was a little bit. So I will
really interesting. That's
yeah,
actually really cool. Yeah.
I think it's all like left-brained or whatever. I think like athletics and music are kind of on the same side, so like one thing would attract the other. So I will say, like, if you're saying like you were the loser in high school, you're still getting laid now, right? So I would hope. So I mean that's kind of the positive of it, you know. Your stage presence that you had when you were in high school doing your shows, like you learn from that. Now you learn how to talk to women. That's all that matters, you know.
So give me a little bit of how like that encounter happened with like the Russian fighters. Like they wanted to. You said they wanted to sing, or
yeah. So we had this guy. His name was Andrew Sanchez. He was an NAIA like national champion. He's Ultimate Fighter Tough 23 champion. He's doing pretty well in the UFC. He's in the UFC right now, but he started coming to the gym right about the time when I was finishing college. And he was just like, oh, like you play the guitar or whatever. And he's like, let's start a band. Like I want to start a band. So then I went over to his house. And I had a set of drums. So I brought the set of drums over to his house, and then there was all these other Russian guys that were kind of living in the house. So none of them really spoke English. Like it was hard to communicate with them, but we kind of communicated through the music or whatever. So it was interesting. And then we had some other fighters that were also American, and we would kind of connect through that. And like I said, we had a band. I think it was called Do It for Duck It, which was the name of the weed plant that was growing. I probably shouldn't say that. My coach will be upset. But which was the name of the weed plant that was like growing somewhere. But
I'll omit that from the
yeah. There you go.
There was one interview where I was talking about like all the stupid shit that I did in my last job.
Yeah.
So I asked them to fucking edit that. Like, I was like, yeah. I cannot have that. Like I signed a contract.
Oh yeah.
No. Like,
yeah. That's the beauty of not doing things live.
Exactly.
These live streams are dangerous now. You never know what you're gonna say.
Yeah. So are you still a part of that gym?
No. So I had I was basically, once I graduated college, I was training pretty much like twice a day, and then just like the continuous ground and pound on my head. I had a headache for 4 years. Like I couldn't exercise. It took me until right about when COVID started to actually heal from the concussion. So it was like really bad. Like I spent a year like I couldn't work, couldn't do anything. I'm grateful for the opportunity. It's definitely my fault because I think I was going much harder than I should have in practice, and you kind of do these things to yourself as a kid. You're like, I want to make it, but yeah. So I haven't like done any contact sports since that. Yeah.
So what's the difference between a guitar, you said, comic and a musical comic? What's the difference?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a difference that I've kind of made up in my mind, but like I feel like a guitar comic is like somebody who has the guitar and they'll have like the setup, the punchline, and then that'll be like kind of the song. So like the guitar comic's doing songs for like a minute, right? Whereas like a musical comic is someone who's an actual musician who is doing music. Like I know there's a lot of great musical comics. And one of the guys that comes to my mind, this guy Nate Marks. He's out in I don't know where he lives. He lives in Emmaus, PA, around that area. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That's where he lives. But like he'll literally riff solos. Like, and for me, like I do a lot of like arpeggiating when I play. Everything's very like minor chord based. So I think that somebody who's got the guitar, it's just somebody who's singing two chords, whereas I think there's a lot more like kind of thought process and musical kind of prowess when you have somebody who's got the musical kind of background of it. But like I said, it's kind of how I separate it, just kind of in my own mind, because like I said, there's funny people that do both, but they're definitely different styles, despite the fact that they're both with the guitar.
So how would you define your genre of music, you think?
So it's weird because as I've gotten kind of more and more into the comedy, I've kind of been like, okay, like I need to change up not just what I'm doing as a comedian, not just the jokes, but I also need to change up kind of the song style. So, I mean, I started with like a very upbeat tempo, and then kind of moved into kind of like a slower genre of like ballads and things like that. I've been experimenting recently like with a little bit of like rock music. Like I said, I do like playing like kind of like dark themed songs. I think it's kind of more fun. I think it really, if you're paying attention, and I think that's the problem, is like if you're not paying attention, it just sounds like music. Actually, that's a good thing of like a musical comedian. If you're not paying attention, you just think it's music. Whereas a guitar comic, like you would know. But yeah, so I've experimented with all different styles, and I don't want to lock myself onto one. What I want to do is I want to have like different songs and different styles, because I think as a comedian, ultimately, you know, I'm trying to portray jokes. The similarity is the fact that I'm doing the jokes.
Right, you're trying to cross that boundary into like something new.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing that I wanted to ask. It's like, you know, music has its own sub genres. It has its own like genres and everything. Comedy is the same thing with, you know, there's blues comedy, there's dark humor, things like that. Like, I wanted to know how, you know, you kind of fuse those two kinds of genres. Like, how do you categorize each one and then try to fuse it? Do you have a process with that, or is it like?
Yeah, so I'm very structured kind of in my comedy. So like I said, I try to structure it as an actual stand-up comedian, and I think when I first started, it was just kind of like, these are things that are funny. But like now, the first thing you have to do is you have to come up with the premise, right? So what that premise may be, oh man, I gotta think of a premise now.
Yeah, like, that's another thing. It's like fucking. It's already kind of challenging to be a comedian in general, and then like having to perform both styles. It's even fucking. It's terrifying for me.
Oh yeah.
You know, because I mean, I was bad at both, honestly, and like to try to like fucking fuse the two. It's just fucking nerve-wracking in my opinion. So,
I mean, it definitely makes you better.
Yeah.
Like I think the stand-up comedy has made me better as a musical comedian, and I think the musical comedy has made me better at traditional comedy. And I think because the structure is so kind of rigid with the music comedy, like it allows you to kind of like tighten up your jokes a little bit. But I mean, it's definitely like, it's definitely a journey. It is definitely kind of anxiety-ridden, I guess. But I think one of the things that like as a musical comedian, like you have to realize is like sometimes like if you bomb as a stand-up comedian, people aren't laughing, right? If you bomb as a musical comedian, people might still be laughing, and vice versa. Of like, if you might kill it and just nobody's laughing because they're listening to the music, they're enjoying it because it's entertainment as a sense. It's like it's almost like theater in the sense. So.
All right. Well, thank you for the interview, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Happy to be
that was
here.
great.